And welcome to this inaugural edition of the Pan Oakland podcast. Pan, of course, stands for Poets, Essayists, and Novelists. I guess I'm sort of one of the three of those things. And I've been asked by the founder or the co founder of the Pan Oakland group. I am a board member, but he asked me to come and start this. And so we're starting the Pan Oakland podcast. Let me bring on the co founder of the group, the novelist, the poet, the essayist. He's a playwright. He's an overall literary genius. He is Ishmael Reed, Oakland's native son. Well, actually, not native son. You're from from Chattanooga via or Buffalo via Chattanooga.
I grew up in Buffalo. I was born
Yeah.
in Chattanooga.
Yeah, and Oakland's your home.
And then I went to New York in around 1963 and got enough of New York and left New York in 1967 with a book contract.
Yeah, and then you came to Oakland.
I came to Los Angeles first
But
because while some of my friends were going to Europe, which is usually the destination of successful Black American writers, following in the footsteps of people like Richard Wright and Chester Himes, I announced that I wanted to go to the most barbaric part of the country because I said if I'd remained in New York, I would have perished from an overdose of affection. So I said, what is the most barbaric part of the country? Los Angeles. So I went to Los Angeles. And then after a summer in Los Angeles, we moved to Berkeley first. And we had a very nice place in Berkeley Hills where I found was like Mississippi. Like James Baldwin found the East Hamptons, which is like paradise for first generation successful artists, to be like Mississippi. So I was treated as a suspect in the Berkeley Hills because I worked at home. And so if a male stays in the house and works in the house, he's a suspect that he must be part of the underground economy. So I had one incident where a policeman came in the garden door with his holding his gun, and I said, "Oh, wait a minute," So we had sort of like racism in the Berkeley Hills.
wow.
Then I moved. Go on.
Yeah, then you had to move from Berkeley.
Well, no, I moved to El Cerrito first.
Oh, El Cerrito. Okay, let's get this.
And now the El Cerrito community is saying I'm an El Cerrito author. So so in Chattanooga they call me Chattanooga's own Ishmael Reed. I left when I was 4 years old in Buffalo, and now El Cerrito is inviting me to El Cerrito next year to do to do a series of appearances. And I was living in Berkeley, and Berkeley is for like a place for developers and teenagers. You know what I mean? It's like a sort of town that's been, ironically, it's the whitest city in the county, regardless.
Oh, Alameda County.
Yeah, no, I think it's Contra County, I believe.
El Cerrito.
No, yeah, I'm talking about Berkeley.
No, Berkeley's Alameda County.
Alameda, okay. And, you sure? And we're Contra? I thought we were Alameda. Okay. Anyway, so I said I wanted to move to the most right-wing place around, and somebody told me to go to El Cerrito. So we moved to El Cerrito, not because of that advertisement or somebody telling us that. And they said in El Cerrito, your next door neighbor might be a cop. And he was. I mean, he was a black guy. He was a policeman.
Yeah.
And we're treated okay in El Cerrito, except when I was on the way home from Berkeley, I get stopped by the cops in Albany, which is sort of like Georgia North. It's like Dixie North. It's like that little strip there.
Some people like Albany.
And they want to know, nigga, where you, I said, well, I live here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, finally in 1979, we moved to Oakland. We've been here ever since.
And that's home. And
Absolutely.
And Pan Oakland, poets, essayists, and novelists, there's pens all over. There's a Pan America. Mm-hmm. Why did you start?
Well, get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, why did you start Penn Oakland with Floyd
Well,
South?
because the other pens were not diverse enough, and they had like a board of directors that were top heavy with people from the same background.
Mhm.
So we have a different perspective in the West. We have multiracial communities back. Well, that's changing though. But when I grew up in the East, it was mostly black and white.
Yeah.
And but then that changed. I went to Patterson College, I think it was in New Jersey. I remember in the 80s or early 90s, and I didn't notice any white or black people on the streets in these small towns, mostly Hispanic.
Yeah. So
Now it's changed drastically.
yeah. Well, but the move for Penn Oakland, or the real the thing that founded it, was this need for diversity. When did, before Columbus Foundation, the organization you started that is really the creator of the American Book Awards, which have been around now for how many years now?
Years, almost 50 years.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
that was founded in 1976.
yeah.
And, we're still going strong and increasing our board of directors and our awards are noticed now by the establishment. For example, a Palestinian writer wanted to come to San Francisco to receive his award last year. His book was published by City Lights, but he's arrested by the IDF and in prison. And he's saying that the fact that he won the American Book Award saved him from a beating or being punished. And that was carried in the New Yorker, the New York Times. The New York Times is sort of like the last holdout because they're in the pocket of the National Book Awards and National Book Foundation.
Mhm.
So they had to even the New York Times had to mention that he'd received an American Book Award. But we Penn Oakland, and we're mentioned in newspapers all over the world. For example, a Penn Oakland Award winner made the newspapers in Iran, and they mentioned that he got a Penn Oakland Award. So we do have a sort of like a reach or range or a reach beyond those of organizations of our style, of our kind.
Well, certainly a notoriety, and once again, Penn Oakland has its own awards separate from the American Book Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And
Josephine Miles Awards.
the Josephine Miles Awards, which I was fortunate to host this year, or last year rather,
Mm-hmm.
and also very happy to have been invited onto the board. Now, and of course, when you mentioned the possibility of a podcast, I was just curious, what do you want to come out of these podcasts? I'm going to talk to you and other members of Penn Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we want to establish a disclaimer that the views and opinions are those of the participants and not of Penn Oakland.
Right, right. Well, I think that we have something that's missing on the networks where most of the people are from the same background, same education. They have interchangeable resumes, like those people, the columnists at the Times and Washington Post and, the Times, the Washington Post and that Northeastern elite.
Yeah.
They get tricked all the time. They get tricked all the time because they're really, removed from what ordinary people have to go through, every day. So, some of their columns, I disagree with the columns, but it's very difficult to interact with them, to communicate with them. Like you can write a letter, as I did recently. They'll print that, but they sort of like have tokens. They have people who are, what you call minorities, I guess, who've been pacified or domesticated. They know if they step out of line, they're going to get fired.
Yeah. Well,
Like Don Lemon. Don Lemon got fired.
Yeah.
And he was right. I mean, this guy, Swami, what's his, this,
Vivek Ramaswamy,
I mean, the guy,
who could be who could be Donald Trump's vice president.
yeah, well, he's going to put us in charge. He's going to put Swami in charge of us.
Oh, yeah, Ramaswamy. Yeah.
Because his whole program was racist. He's saying, black people shouldn't have Juneteenth, and he identified with that vigilante in Florida who shot those people, and he tried to justify that, and just anti-black rhetoric. And I think he could have won the nomination
Yeah,
But then he got into foreign policy, and he started making all kind of bizarre things, comments about foreign policy. But if he just stuck to racism, he might have gotten a nomination. But the guy's a rookie.
you're talking about Ramaswamy.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he was, they like, you got millions of people
Yeah.
who did that racist red meat, and he was doing a good job. And then he's black. He, like a decoy. He's brown
Yeah.
color.
He's
And so
he's
ideal. So they said, well, it's not. We're not saying it. He's one of your own. He's saying it.
he's South Asian from Cincinnati with a Harvard pedigree. By
Yeah,
the way.
well, he's an amateur white man, but
Yeah.
he'll never be accepted. He's like Anglo in training, but they'll never accept him. They probably
Well,
call him a nigger behind his back.
Well, look, I've only mentioned Ramaswamy because the internet was full of mentions that maybe he's the guy who would be Trump's vice presidential pick. But last night we saw, I think I saw in some of the newscasts, Doug Burgum talking about the debate and Marco Rubio, and we are talking the day after the big presidential debate. So let's just move into the main issue because we want to talk about the election. But let me get your reaction to last night's debate. What did you think about President Joe Biden and his performance?
Well, I think that Trump would never have gotten away with the stuff he got away with last night if he were being interrogated by the BBC. I mean, you had two passive
Moderators.
Yeah. And they sort of like were tilting the whole thing toward Trump and asking Biden all the tough questions. There were a lot of questions they didn't bring up where, Trump said the people ought to get in, immigrants ought to have a gladiator fight or something. The guy's a cruel,
Yeah.
a cruel bum and with no class, but he knows how to get people riled up. He say swear words and they have him on 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
If he said that Biden should have an injection.
Oh yeah.
And his ASS. I mean, it's
right. Performance because he was saying that
I'll tell the people I live with that Biden should have pulled down his pants and have him come over and examine whether he got a shot. And while he's examining, he's examining where he got a shot, he could do something else. Yeah, that's what I would have done. That would have won the debate.
Well, it would, considering what did win. I mean, it just seemed that a lot of people are harping on the poor performance of President Biden, and he only had a couple of things to prove: that he had the energy and he had the wherewithal to withstand whatever pressures come up, because people were doubting his fitness age-wise. They saw him as frail, and he came out and he did not disprove the stereotype. And it was sad because people had to admit that, okay, well, maybe something's wrong. What do you think? It's mixed. A lot of people, Kamala Harris for one, said, look, Joe had a weak start, but he came on strong at the end. You can't get rid of a guy just because of a bad 90 minutes in a debate. Look at the last 4 years. And then there were people who said, God, Joe Biden's not going to win. We need to replace him. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I don't know. I think I thought he did a good job this morning.
Yeah, he was out there in North Carolina
this morning. I think that the moderators should have. They sort of allowed Trump to run amok, even though they had those rules.
Yeah,
but he just got away with murder because the moderators. I think the media probably prefers, or now in plural, prefer Trump because he makes money for them. As a matter of fact, a study came out. I went to this study, and it said that now in 2016, the Shorenstein Center at Harvard, that media studies place in Harvard, they said that the journalism had fueled. This was the first time the journalists had fueled the election of a president because he got $1 billion worth of free publicity, right?
Yeah.
And so now I read this piece from Cap Times it said opinion for media, Trump coverage and profits go hand in hand. So I think what's her name, Gail Collins of the New York Times was correct. She said he's fun to watch. So
Yeah.
he gets up there and said a whole lot of screwball, vulgar, engage in all scatology, and these meatheads that follow him, they love that. They yuck it up, and
Yeah.
they make money. And what's his name, Jeff Zucker at CNN?
He's no longer there.
Yeah, but he apologized for
Right.
CNN giving Trump all that stuff. And Muniz of CBS says he may be bad for democracy, but he's good for us. So he's making money for them. So they are very gentle with him, and they're gentle with his crazy ass followers. They make all kind of excuses like they've been left behind and they're alienated. And my favorite is that remember Katie Tur?
Yeah. On MSNBC.
Yeah, she said they were upset because they couldn't tell the jokes they told 10 years ago. I said, well, what kind of jokes? What kind of jokes were these? So I think that the media is promoting this guy, and I think last night was an example of it. In terms of Biden, there are a lot of good presidents in the past who would not have done well on the. I mean, you look at Buchanan and some of those people who they're not telegenic. I think Kennedy started all this because he was telegenic. And then all these billionaires, they discovered that you can get somebody who's telegenic like Ronald Reagan, a failed actor, but could read scripts. So they'd seen him. He knew how to dress up. He knew all that stuff. He'd been in Hollywood and been in all these roles. And so, he knew the fundamentals, although he's a bad actor. He knew all the fundamentals of acting, and so they just send him someplace, give him a script, tear down that wall, Mr. Chubba, whatever. And he's a good actor. So you have to be an actor. You have to be. And this guy, Trump, he's been in television.
Yeah.
So, so the Americans have to decide whether they want cheap thrills and a guy that swears and shocks people with some kind of juvenile, schoolyard language, or whether they want to save democracy.
Well, that's the thing. I wrote in my my essay this morning for the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, and people can go to ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. I pretty much laid it out where, Biden was not charismatic. He was not vigorous and vibrant. He didn't have the vitality that his surrogates who defended him afterwards. I noted that Kamala Harris was very strong in her defense of Joe Biden.
They're not going to elect a black president again. They still are in post-traumatic stress over Obama, so they're not going to do that.
I know. Well, the thing about Kamala Harris is it made me realize, number one, how the Biden camp has really underutilized her. They're using her more for women's issues. They were using her on the border issues, but then they took her off that. But Kamala Harris, if people don't, make fun of her grammar or make fun of her speaking, I mean, that's what the GOP always call her. Word salad.
Her grammar's okay. Who? Fox News and those people?
They make fun of her, but now,
those people criticize her grammar.
Oh yeah, Fox News. They have nothing to talk about. But the latest ad now that was revealed before the debate yesterday showed Joe Biden falling down and Joe Biden, falling off his bike. And then the last line, the punchline was, "Oh, of course." And look who's waiting in the wings. And
racist appeal. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they close on a picture of
they had one of these hillbillies. Excuse me, I shouldn't use that term. These are working class white people. I shouldn't use it. Strike that. I don't use the term hillbillies. But one of these women. Now that's interesting. White women are going to vote for Trump again.
Yeah.
They voted, wait. They voted for him in 2016. The majority voted for him in 2020. And they're going to vote for him again because he's got them in some kind of protection racket where, he came down the escalator saying, oh, these rapists are coming at, they use that old extortion game against white women. Even though Jennifer Rubin wrote from the Washington Post, is that her name?
Yeah, Jennifer Rubin, yeah.
How women save democracy. Well, she might be talking about black and Hispanic and Asian American women, but then she's not talking about white women because they're with Trump. even though he wants they want to put a padlock on their uteri, is that uteri or uteruses
I mean,
or whatever. He
but
wants,
but but
but he wants to reduce women to the status of breeders.
yeah,
This is they say I give the feminists a hard time. They hate feminism. They
yeah.
hate progress that women have made. They want to make them like human hens, like breeding,
Yeah. But
because they
this is
feel they are being replaced.
yeah, but this is why in my column today I suggested that maybe when I saw Kamala Harris come out strongly to defend Trump, maybe she is the answer. Maybe she is the best thing in a Biden Harris ticket. I'm not talking about replacing Joe Biden, but maybe he should lean on her more because you consider the reproductive rights issue, you consider the women's issues, you consider how and this is probably why they don't embrace Kamala Harris more, and that's because they know the right is going to jump on Harris as the second coming of Hillary Clinton, who is not just African American but also Asian American. She's prime to throw
Well,
at the
well,
MAGA.
they'll probably emphasize the black part.
Oh
Everybody was saying, well, Tiger,
oh
we
yeah,
don't classify him. He might, he's Asian and blah blah blah. But when he got in those scandals, they say he's a nigger.
he's black. He's black.
He said he's black.
Well, yeah. Well, listen, as an Asian American, Filipino Asian American, I've always noticed this throughout Kamala's career that she went to Howard, but her mother she talks about her mother more than her father. Her mother, who's Asian, South Asian, but she rarely came out as Asian except 4 years ago, and because of her influence, I think Joe Biden has been the most pro-Asian president. I think that we've seen in America. I mean, Asian Americans were targeted during the pandemic, and who is out there to defend the rights of Asian Americans and to remind people that Asian Americans, were entitled to the same rights as everyone else?
Well, Trump put the thing on him.
Yes, right, exactly. And every time Trump sort of tried to put a ding on Biden, I just kept thinking about side by side. Who is out there for Asian Americans? Who is out there for civil rights? Who is out there for voting rights? And, it just sparks the memory. And then I think it was easy for me to say, hey, bad night for Joe Biden, but not a deal killer. He was recovering from a bad cold, they said halfway through the debate.
Not
But
only that, he'd taken 2 trips to Europe.
yeah, he's done a lot.
It takes me, if I go abroad, it takes me a few weeks to recover.
Yeah.
But he went for the G7 or whatever that was.
Yeah, the G7.
And then he went to Italy.
Yeah. So I just think that I was willing to cut him a slack.
I don't make excuses for him. I think the problem is still, as I say, the media and the multinational corporations. Now, we just had a great civil rights leader, one of the last civil rights leaders who was affiliated with Martin Luther King, die. Mm-hmm. Now, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X had differences, but they came from organizations that had their own money. So the Nation of Islam, no matter what people think about them, they had their own money. And the church that the black church that Martin Luther King was affiliated with, they had their own money. Now we got these multinationals replacing the traditional civil rights leaders with thugs. Like 50 Cent went to Congress. And the reason that he came to prominence is because he sells products for these black, how did Everett put it? Black pathology outfits like Stars Network, which is your black pathology network. They have all these cliche series about black people distributing drugs and Hispanics supplying them. Well, I know it's more complicated than that because I've studied the issue. As a matter of fact, I've written a novella that might be on the screen. I'll give you more information later.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff comes from like different ethnic groups participate in the narcotics trafficking, not just blacks and Hispanics, but that's their thing. And he plays. They put him as executive producer on some of this. Laughable.
So, but
Let me finish.
yeah,
So he participates in he was in a series called Power,
yeah,
where his character murdered his son, and then another character murdered his father. And this character is the star of the succeeding series, and he is being redeemed by the Western canon. In other words, this guy committed patricide. I think that's the word.
yeah.
And he goes to college, and they give him the Western canon. He turns out he's smart because he can interpret these texts. So I mean, that's the kind of trash that 50 Cent is affiliated with. And his other claim to fame is he got shot 9 times. So he's really a gangster. So they got these rappers endorsing Trump. And I think that's a reason for there being an uptick in black support for Trump, because these people have followers. So these people didn't arise from the traditional spawning grounds for civil rights leaders. They were promoted by multinationals. Like Pepsi Cola made P. Diddy a role model. Remember?
Yeah.
Remember the ads where P. Diddy was a role model? And then there was and they knew his background. And there was there was a rollout for their products from Pepsi Cola backing P. Diddy. And then the New York Times devoted a whole issue, a whole section, how clever he was as an entrepreneur. Then he turned out to be a creep toward women.
Yeah.
So the civil rights movement, the traditional way of creating black leaders is fading. And so now the multinationals do it. And so that's why 50 Cent can go to Washington and testify and endorse Trump.
So this is interesting because when you said, what is this phenomenon? The rappers are replacing civil rights leaders, and it's because of their influence. And it means if the rappers aren't into civil rights, they're just into making money. So they're in the pockets of the corporations. But it means that the message that these rappers have is a different message from the civil rights leaders.
James Clyburn was on, and he was not acquainted with the rappers and their influence. He said, well, some rapper guy. These guys are being very effective, just like Taylor Swift is effective in, drawing votes for Biden. These guys are drawing votes for Trump because they see him as a player and a gangster. And, this is very attractive for these guys who do a lot of bling blinging. They like they consume a lot of stuff. They don't, some are invested. I mean, I guess P. Diddy has a fashion line, but most of them, if you go to Wikipedia and look at the deaths of rappers and hip hoppers, it's mayhem.
Yeah.
I mean, like self-annihilation. And then you get Ari Melber and those people, those naive,
on MSNBC.
No, he's like a professional white Negro.
Yeah.
And he really, I mean, his whole shtick is, the rappers and the hip hoppers. So I wrote a piece saying how many rappers have to die so that Ari Melber can look woke or hip or cool,
Well, the thing is, rap culture is pop music. I mean, it's become, almost synonymous. I mean, there's still, gradations or, different, brands of music. I mean, music has been segregated for a long time.
I think I'm talking about the gangster rap.
The gangster rap. Well, gangster rap is.
Ice-T said, you taking your life. He said something like, you're taking your life in your hands when you become a rapper because it's such a kill rate. Look at all the people like, Tupac Shakur and, a whole list of people.
Yeah.
So these are people who are, some of them were former gangsters and drug dealers. And, now they've gone legit. That's what Ice-T said.
Yeah. So they're respectable. And And you think Donald Trump is co-opted these guys, co-opted the rappers?
Well, he's got a past where he mingled with them. As a matter of fact, Luther Campbell. You remember Luther Campbell?
Hmm.
Two Live Crew. Remember they
Yep.
had the obscenity case.
Hmm.
He said he went to a party that Trump threw in Florida that was so raunchy he left. I mean,
So
he's acquainted with Don King and all these people.
yeah, yeah. Well, all I'm saying is that it seems like aren't there any good rappers out there? I mean, because
There are a
you,
lot of good ones. There are a lot
you
of good ones. There are a lot of good rappers, man. I mean, I listen to some of it. I
I mean,
listen to.
I mean, good rappers who
I'm
have
I'm talking about the guys who are for Trump. Those are the guys I'm talking about.
yeah. Well,
And
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
I'm talking about Kanye West and some of the other people who are for Trump. And they have followers, and the followers are voting for Trump.
now
Those
the
are the ones I'm
criticism,
talking about.
the criticism of Trump, like when he puts out his shoe line, or when he, sells his, his mugshot, and he tries to appeal to the black community because, hey, he says I'm criminal. I know I know the criminal thing, and a lot of people are rightfully insulted that he's doing that, but it's purposeful and he doesn't care, right?
Well, a lot of these guys are ignorant and they're not informed, and unhinged, like Kanye and all of them.
Mhm.
They don't understand that if they were in his place, they would have been in prison a long time ago. Now, the Supreme Court, this MAGA Supreme Court, I saw an ad in the New York Times where they all had MAGA caps on. Did you see that?
I
There
didn't
was
see
New
that.
York Times where Supreme Court justice had MAGA hats. You know, they just let this guy. They just gave this guy a soft. The guy who the insurrectionist
Yeah.
had his case tested. They gave him a kind of break. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
He,
yeah.
he
They're saying
assaulted a cop. He assaulted a cop.
yeah.
Now you think of an Asian American or Hispanic or black guy assaulted a cop, the Supreme Court would say, "Well, he's paid his dues. Why don't we just."
Well, Ishmael, that obstruction law, was too expansive.
Yeah,
They need to
right.
be
Yeah,
narrow in their viewpoint of that
yeah.
obstruction definition, and
Well,
and ultimately it's going to
well,
apply.
I think 50 Cent said that he bonded with Trump because he got a RICO.
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah.
But
He's a
but you
gangster.
got this judge in Florida, this woman, and you got the Supreme Court and all of them, and even the Attorney General leaning over backwards to give this guy an escape route, so these trials won't come up until after the election. I mean,
Yeah,
that's so obvious by now what they're trying
yeah.
to do. They would
It
never
is.
give a break like that to a black defendant.
But also they have a certain fealty to Trump because that's why they have their positions. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I mean, but yeah, but when this lawyer, one of his lawyers, what's her name? One of the ones they said is so incompetent. One of his lawyers, the woman who they said was incompetent. She
uh,
said she said they're going to vote in favor of Trump because he got them their jobs. And they said, "Oh, that's ridiculous." I mean, this is Chris Hayes and all of them. They said, "Oh, how could that be true? I mean, they're not going to give him immunity, you
yeah.
know." And then Chris Hayes said, "I'm angry at myself for being surprised that they did this. Where's this guy
Well,
been? Where's
you
this
know,
guy been?" He
you
said
know
he was angry with himself. I think I give you the date, February 28th. He said because I'm writing an article about it.
yeah.
With El País. I can't get published here. I had to go to Spain to get. As a matter of fact, El País came here 2 weeks ago to interview me. They're going. Then the BBC was here a couple of weeks ago, 4 days interviewing me. Right? Okay. So I have to go abroad to have my opinions there. He on February 28th, he said, "I'm." Let's see. I am angry at myself for being surprised that the Supreme Court would do this. Now, this woman told this lawyer, she said they're gonna vote for our people because Trump put them on the court. And everybody said, "Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, all these lawyers they have,
Yeah.
that's nonsense. I mean, how could they? They did it. They probably was let him off.
Well, this is a bad trend where the conservative courts that were
How
really
about not? How about Nazi?
Well, okay,
I mean, that's how Hitler saw women, breeders.
well, that's a phrase you're using,
Give me more people for my army.
but
Give
the
me
the, the courts that were shaped by Trump, it seems like if you're a law abiding citizen, I'm a law abiding citizen. I feel like the law is a law. We have rule of law, justice, truth. There's something absolute. It shouldn't be based on politics. It shouldn't be that, well, if you're a Democrat, this is the law. But if you're a Republican, now suddenly the law has changed and now there's no law.
I'll tell you what. I think members of the first generation of immigrant families have got a big surprise coming. Okay, because it doesn't operate that way. I saw Iman. Iman, the last South Asian on MSNBC.
Yeah. Amen.
The rest
Yeah.
of them got fired from Gaza because did you notice that?
Yes, I did notice that.
I mean, there's a massacre going on there because they're going against the script provided by the IDF, right? Which hands, they hand press releases to the networks and they, distribute them. But he said America's a beacon of hope. He's gonna be shocked if we get the Trump regime in, because
Well, yeah.
and Hispanics, you got Hispanic men voting for Trump,
Well,
even
this
even though he says he wants to deport 2 million Hispanic people. And the last time they did that in the Hoover administration, because Herbert Hoover blamed Hispanics on the Depression.
yeah.
Well, so the last time they couldn't distinguish between the Hispanics who were born in the United States, and they couldn't distinguish between the two. So that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
Hey,
And
this
thousand of those children,
yeah.
that's the most evil, diabolical, sinister creep in the Steve Miller. That was his idea of separating these families. 1,000 of those children will never see their parents again.
Yeah, Stephen Miller, who wrote that Project 2025 piece or had a hand in that the Heritage Foundation has put out.
When the Heritage Foundation was, I knew a congressman. I testified before a congressional committee, and I met this congressman. And when the Heritage Foundation was formed, I said it's a Nazi foundation because I knew where they were coming from.
Yeah.
I mean, because what they learned was like Elon Musk, who's in our play.
Yeah.
You can get paid, man. That's what the neocons discovered, that if you jump on black people and minorities and all that, and against affirmative action and all that, you can get paid. Now, one of the first neocons was Irving Kristol.
Oh yeah.
They were all radicals in the beginning. I mean, they're all radicals, Trotskyites and all that, communists. They changed when they moved to Manhattan from Brooklyn, and became successful intellectuals, right?
Careerist public intellectuals. Yeah.
He told Alfred Kazin that he's going right. And when he went right, the Bradley Foundation picked up his lunch tabs and stuff, man. So they said, well, then they all learned. They were hypocrites too, like Norman Podhoretz talking about, black women and giving. Nobody would mention that the rate of so-called out of wedlock births from black women have plummeted drastically. So but they keep pushing that issue. They were swingers themselves. They were hypocrites.
Yeah.
Hey, wait. Theodore Soloratov.
Oh yeah.
He said Norman Horowitz was a swinger. I mean, he and Emil were out doing the town every night. He's talking about morality for black people. And then the other one was Leon Wesley Tier. Is that how you pronounce his name? New Republic?
I know the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
talking about all these New York Jewish intellectuals.
He said, well, I don't want to put it that way. They probably don't. They probably don't identify with that. But anyway, they see themselves as Anglos. So he said that black people should adhere to bourgeois values. You know what? He was doing so much coke he couldn't stand up. He was going through so many grams of coke that he couldn't even stand it. And then he got fired from the New Republic for sexual harassment. Yeah. So I mean, they're all projecting, and they found there's much. So Elon Musk said, "I want to get some of this money too." Elon Musk. Now they're going to do a thing on affirmative action on CNN.
Yeah,
which they view as the entertainment, right?
They're doing also something on affirmative action in the Harvard case.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
MSNBC.
Asian American organizations and scholars say there was no discrimination against Asian Americans at Harvard, not a single case. And when they testified, the Asian American students said there was no case. There was no case at all. Okay, this clown, Elon Musk, it took the Harvard Crimson
Student newspaper.
to reveal where his money was coming from, like the Koch brothers and all of it. So he getting paid. Elon Musk said, I'm gonna get me some of this cash. So he went down to Texas. Remember that?
Yeah, he went to.
Try to get this white girl to be a firm. Now you know this.
Oh, yeah, the Fisher case.
You know this.
Yeah.
The chief of the leading recipients of affirmative action are white women. You know this. So he got this white woman, and it turned out she's a bad student. So he said, let me go out. Then the devil, he started talking to the devil. The devil said, well, Elon, go get one of them Chinese Americans. He said, thank you, devil. Thank you, Satan.
Well, it was Abigail Fisher.
Wait a minute. He went and got a Chinese American, and he said to be the pawn. And he said, you know what? These people play golf like us.
Well, wait, you mentioned Abigail Fisher.
Oh my God. Where are you bringing that name up for?
Well, she's
God, I thought she was gone. Ain't she dead or something?
No. She's the white girl. The
I thought you meant that. I thought you meant that couple.
Oh yeah. Joey Buttafuoco.
Well, no, Abigail. What's the name? What was it? Her. She had a husband. They were.
I don't know. I'm talking about the
girl,
the white girl who was. You said she was a bad student. I think she was like a B student.
Well,
but the thing was Scalia, who also questioned her. She, during the hearing, he said, "Look, if she was hurt, if there was Scalia, the late Antonin Scalia, who the originalist, he said, well, if there was any harm, what does she want? May just give her her money back, give her the the application fee back.
Yeah,
you don't have to change anything." And
he's the one who destroyed democracy. He's the one who destroyed with that Gore decision.
Yeah,
he's the one that has been downhill ever since.
Well, see, it's hard to undo all these things that the justices have, that you think is settled law, but Trump and his conservative approach, picking jurists who pass the litmus test of the conservatives.
No, McCullen was the one that did that. McCullen, the Senator McCullen, right?
Oh yeah, Senator. Well, you're talking about the Senate.
He would not honor Obama's of Garland.
Merrick Garland,
for Supreme Court. And see, he got sucker punched. You see, he grew up in Hawaii, Obama.
Yeah.
He don't know these people like we know. So he went up and he said, well, gee, what's his name? Senator Hatch says that, wow, if I choose Garland, that would be acceptable. And then they betrayed him.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Lord Hatch said, if you pick somebody like Garland for the Supreme Court, we'll go for that. And so Obama, trusting, thinking that he could, make some kind of arrangement or a deal with these rascals and racists, he said, well, I guess I will do that. He nominated Garland, right?
And Garland
they changed their mind. They said, no. And then what's his name? I keep mixing his name with
Mitch McConnell.
Because I keep mixing it up with McKellen, that old cracker, that old Nazi down there.
Yeah.
Segregation.
McClellan from Mississippi.
Yeah, but they're the same people. But anyway, then he said, well, we can't nominate somebody when an election coming up. Then he nominated Barrett, right?
Yeah.
Who belongs to a cult. Did you know that?
Who?
Barrett.
Amy Coney Barrett?
Yeah.
The only cult I know she belongs to is the Catholic Church. Is there another?
No, she belongs to a cult.
A cult.
Look it up. Which says that women should be submissive to men.
But she has a lot of babies. I think she has natural and adopted. So maybe it's a birth cult or something. Hey, Ishmael, as we wrap up, a couple of things.
Okay, why you want to wrap up? I'm getting some of my best. I'm getting some of my best jabs in here.
We're all right. So we can just keep going. We can keep going. But I want to ask you about. All right, we talked about the rappers. We talked about the debate. You think that Biden's going to hang in there, but do you think he has a chance after yesterday's debate of overcoming that performance? I mean, I heard a presidential historian today say, "Man, Biden acted like Dukakis when remember they asked the question of Dukakis about capital punishment, and they asked him what would you do if your wife were raped, and and he did not ask or answer with this emotional response. It was a kind of tepid response, and he got lambasted for that, and he never recovered.
That was an unfair question.
It was, but I mean,
unfair question. What's his name? Bernie. What's his name? The guy.
I think it was Bernie Shaw.
He's trying to be the headline. He was trying to make a name for himself with that question. That was unfair.
So, all right, do you think, all right, to get back to today,
just like the questions last night were favorable to Trump?
Well, I don't know if they're favorable.
Yes, they was. They asked Biden. They put Biden on the defensive.
Well, what they did was they said, look, we'll ask a question. We can't fact check you in real time. And I heard Jake Tapper say this, he said, once we give you the question, what you do with your 2 minutes to answer is your business.
Yeah, well, that's because CNN.
Yeah.
That's because a Trump supporter has a piece of CNN and he's moving it to the right. Did you know that? The guy that, I forgot his name, but the guy that contributed to No. The guy that runs, one of the people investor in CNN.
Oh.
A recent investor in CNN who gave money for the Trump inaugural thing, ceremony.
Okay.
Supporter says he wants to move CNN to the right. And it's being moved to the right. They got all some kind of right-wing crackpots on there now. And they got all the black Republicans who voted for Trump have jobs with CNN.
Abby Phillip?
No, I'm talking about some of these guys that come on there.
Yeah.
All 2 or 3 people who voted for Trump have jobs.
Yeah. They do find the black Republicans. They got some guy named
Carmichael, that guy, and some other guy.
Shermichael. They got a guy named Shermichael.
Carmichael.
I didn't know his last name.
Carmichael.
He's not. Yeah, Shermichael is not related
to. Really a piece of work. They got another Republican there.
Yeah. But yeah, because I know Abby Phillip is not. I mean, she's fairly. I think she's
passive.
Yeah. Well, no, I think she's pretty good questioner,
and sometimes uninformed.
I don't know. I like Abby Phillip. I also like Laura Coe. I think the 2 women.
Why do I have more research than these people?
Well,
I was on what's that thing called, Nightline on NBC?
Yeah.
When I got home, NBC asked me to share my research with them. I said, well, you guys in there with that big building, what, BlackRock or whatever this is. You don't have the research? You don't have the research? One thing about Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid, they have research assistants. You can tell.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Some of the other guys, they got other commitments. I guess they get them cheap. And they kind of coast along.
Hey, look, I know. Look, this is the way that, I mean, they're all high paid too. I mean, I think
Don Lemon. They're lazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Don
Lemon is a good example. He exposed this clown, Ramaswamy, who thinks he knows something about Black history, and said that the National Rifle Association has something to do with freeing, emancipating those who were enslaved. Right. And the National Rifle Association, of course, was founded after the Civil War. And so, Don Lemon took him on and got fired.
Yeah.
Melissa Harris Perry got fired. you know.
Yeah.
So they're restricted in what they can say. And they're having this big thing in Brooklyn.
But
Did you notice that MSNBC is going to meet the public in Brooklyn next week?
oh, I
And
only catch MS.
they got them all their faces there. No South Asians. No South Asians, right?
Really? I
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they might, you know, they might.
All I know, look, the only show I watch on MSNBC on a regular basis generally is Lawrence O'Donnell because I happen to know him. And um, although I called him Larry in school.
I wish he stopped that small talk that awkward small talk.
Yeah, on the handoff, on the
Yeah,
hand.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and they giggle. You look at the BBC and Al Jazeera. You don't see anybody giggling and stuff. They be giggling all day and laughing, giggling.
No, but
Is,
but
is that the orders? Is that the orders from the managers? There? Now giggle some. I mean, like
it's the
have
handoff.
fun. Have fun when you're doing the news. Have fun.
He wants to. Well, usually he's handing off with Alex Wagner, or he's more animated with Rachel Maddow.
They're
Uh,
awkward. The women seem real uncomfortable when they're doing those
yeah,
stand up.
it's kind of creepy. Maybe I don't know. I don't see Larry that often, but if I get a chance to see him, I'll mention it to him. Anyway, Ishmael, tell me about one more thing about the election. Does Biden get out of this? When someone said yesterday, I think it was the uh, the governor of Pennsylvania said, "Look, it's time to get Democrats to stop whining, and get to work." Gavin Newsom said as much. He said, "Look,
Shapiro.
yeah, Josh Shapiro, yeah."
Yeah.
So what do you think? Is there a way out or back? Because first of all, I think it's ageist as hell for people to look at Joe Biden and don't think that he is capable. Although some people say, "Hey, look, what are you talking about? Look, he can barely walk. He can't talk."
I
He,
think I think I think he got a foot injury.
I don't know. He was
They-
walking pretty gingerly.
Well, they did one focus group, and the commentators were surprised because the people said that Trump is a big old liar, and one Republican say he never vote for Trump, and they ended up saying they vote for Biden. So you have to wait to see what the public says in the polls
Yeah.
instead of what the commentators say, who are paid to do both sides ism, both
It,
sides ism. You
it,
got a deranged lunatic on one side, and you got a person who's running the government on the other side, and they say both sides.
right.
You know,
Now I'm balanced. Now I'm
this,
balanced.
like this troll, like this one of those people on the bridge in Scandinavian folklore. He's on one side,
Wow.
and you got a fully developed human, and they say, well, both sides, both sides.
Well, what do you like,
And
Van Jones?
and why would they say, well, you molest? He raped that woman.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Well, that's the
they
thing.
don't bring up the other 16 women who
Yeah.
said they were violated by him, including a 13-year-old who left the country.
Is this the thing when Biden said molestation charge? I said
No,
molestation. It was, well, look, you can't say rape, but it was sexual assault.
no, they said rape.
Well, yeah, but given the law and the court, it was a civil case. The legal term is sexual
Well,
assault.
what do you think of
Tantamount
somebody? What do you
tantamount
think? What do you think of somebody from your background or my background? Were in that situation. What
Oh,
would
they
they
call
call?
it rape. They,
Yep.
they call it rape. They call it rape. Sure, they call it rape. Yeah. Oh, that rapist Filipino guy. So, all right. So, I just, I don't know if I'm mad about the ageism thing because
I'm
Biden
86.
was able
I'm
to turn.
86. I'm 86. I get it all the time. Can I help you up? Can I help you get up? Do you need assistance? Do you want me to help you take your coat off? Do you want, I get all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Well, I feel closer in age.
Let's find up and talk about the play that you're going to be in.
Oh yeah. Tell me about this, this play, the Shine Challenge 2024, because we did a Zoom
Reading. You did a
version,
reading. Yeah. Mhm.
a video reading online through the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, but now you've gotten the wherewithal to mount a full production of the Shine Challenge.
Yeah, but I really appreciate the sacrifices that you've made. Like your energy and your persistence is going to make you into a star because you went to New York and you spent all that time, all the transportation costs and the renting a place and all that, and then you did your fringe piece, and you really attracted a lot of notice in our plays. As a matter of fact, you were the ones who got the most applause, and I didn't like your attempt to get me to write this to be you have you as a co-author writing the script. Like he wanted to write the script, and I said, no, why don't you just be the actor this time? You can write a script later. But anyway, you did a great job, and this is a play based upon a Black story that's disappearing. And what they're trying to do now is to anglicize all of us and exterminate or eradicate our stories and our folklore. And I think I see one of my tasks as an artist is to maybe present this folklore in a different form, bring it up to date. And so Shine is about a Black person in the boiler room of the Titanic who survives, dives overboard, and all these wealthy people in first class are offering him bribes. And he says, get your ass in the water and swim like me. And so I've expanded the 35 lines or so that Langston Hughes wrote down. It was part of the oral tradition. Langston Hughes wrote down these lines in 1965, although they give a white ethnologist credit for it. But this is a pattern. They said a white man invented ragtime. They said a white man invented jazz. So, a white man invented, he didn't do this. This is a story that I heard when I was a child in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So what I've done is taken that 35 lines and expanded it into a script, 99-page script.
And so I know how well the reading went. I had my fake mustache on, and I don't know. I don't think I'll.
You did well. You did very well. You played
Yeah.
You played one of the owners of the shipping, one of the chief owners of the shipping line.
And you don't hear much about this guy, Ismay, except you go deep into the history. But remember, CNN did a big thing about the Titanic.
They missed a lot of stuff. I saw that. They said that the Captain Smith had an impeccable record. That's not true. He had a number of accidents.
Yeah.
But so they try to. I mean, it's entertainment. They're lazy when it comes to research.
So you put together this script. It places it in a form of a trial, which Americans love trials.
Mm-hmm.
Trials tell a story. The Trump trial and all the trials that should be on, but are on hold. And now you're putting Shine's on trial, and Shine again. His name is
the boat.
Yeah, how is this
sinking the boat? Because they said, well, after all, he's the only Black person on board, so he must have sank the boat.
So Shine comes from. How is that's his last name? His first name? It's from.
Well, some speculation is that his name was Shoeshine, S. Shine. But it's been transformed. There are different versions of it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's oral tradition, but
absolutely.
this came out because
there were different versions of the Homeric tales before they were written down.
Right. I mean, but essentially, yeah, but essentially this came out because, or the oral tradition with these stories.
1912, the sinking of the Titanic was a defeat for Western superiority. The year before, in 1911, Jack Johnson had defeated Jim Jeffries in Reno, which was a defeat for the superiority of whites in the boxing ring. And so when that ship went down, it's supposed to be unsinkable, invincible, and people in the first class drowned. I think a lot of poor people uh, remarked about that and how even though you have all this money, you cannot beat the weather and you cannot beat nature. So there are a lot of stories within the story, and I try to draw them out.
And people,
Class,
because this was
race,
right. And
and
because this was such a big event, a big world event, the sinking
mhm,
of the Titanic,
mhm,
uh, African Americans, they're part of society. They had to talk about it. This is the way they interacted with this huge worldwide event,
mhm.
and out comes these oral stories like the Shine. Well, why do you call it the Shine Challenge? Why is it a challenge?
Because that's how some of the African American arts work, like jam sessions,
Mm,
where you know people learn through competing with each other, and like the tap dance, which is a good example of challenge, where one hoofer tries to out hoof the other hoofer, and people learn that way, and that's how things evolve. They don't have universities for those things. I guess nowadays they probably have a university for tap dance. I know they have universities to teach jazz,
yeah.
but these are off-campus competitions. They were called challenges, and so I call this a Shine Challenge in hopes that somebody in a future generation will even improve upon this. This is how we keep our stories alive. I'm sure this applies to Filipino Americans, Chinese Americans, and others. I know. Chinese Americans are doing uh, writing novels and theater based on uh, ancient stories.
Right. Their responses, their replies.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm standing in front of a gong,
yeah,
because the
right.
gong is our Philippine, our kulintang gong is our Philippine drum, our timekeeper, and the timekeeper of stories. So it's also like a one-eyed you know,
Hmm.
spirit, in my closet here
Hmm.
to guide me. But
Well,
well,
see, the model in the educational system is like the Carlisle School, Carlisle Indian School.
oh yeah,
You're supposed to give up your tradition, your stories, your religion, and become Anglo. This is failing. And you got a whole generation defecting from this model, which is the reason for the panic. Now, they use the term woke. Brett Stevenson lost his mind. The guy in the New York Times going crazy over woke. I'm sure and nobody asked him to define it. And when William Melvin Kelly used the term woke in 1982 in the New York Times, he meant like being hip. Like the jazz musicians had this thing about being hip as
mm,
opposed to being square. Like Lawrence Welk square. Charlie Parker is hip. Dylan Thomas is hip. You know what I mean? Edgar
yeah,
Guest is square. Edgar Guest is square. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So those were the dichotomies they had in mind. But now they got these think tanks where you got Elon Musk and all these guys. They twist. What's that guy's Chris Rufo or whatever? Christopher
okay,
Rufo.
yeah, Christopher
Yeah.
Rufo. So
They twist it all around and twist it, turn it around so it become like diversity, and which really means black people because they see black people as the ringleaders.
yeah,
Black people are the ringleaders of diversity.
yeah.
And
Have you noticed that they have diversity has become coded as DEI,
yeah,
which and I had never heard about that until like a couple of
they
years
have
ago.
these think tanks with Koch and Mellon and all these people, these right wingers, with these billionaires. They
Yeah,
hire these. You know. I always think about that what Norman Podhoretz told
mm,
Allen Ginsberg.
what's that?
He's one of the original neocons. Norman Podhoretz. He
Yeah,
said, "If I'm not a poet by the time I'm 30, I'll commit suicide."
he said that
So he found a place to go to use his intellectual talents, man. That's what
because
it's
he's
like.
known more of as a rhetorician, essayist.
Yeah, bad
Norman
life.
Rockwell.
He identified with white people. He said,
Yeah,
uh, their Negro problem and ours, where he's identifying. I'll
right.
tell you what's his name? The Manhattan Institute's always putting me down.
Um, John
Uh,
McWhorter.
yeah, no, the Manhattan Institute, they got this little Nazi rag called the City Journal. Then they
Oh,
put me down. They said, well, even you got these old timers like Ishmael Reed put down Hamilton, this fraud where they honor slaveholders. You know that thing that they
Yeah.
got, and they use Lin-Manuel Miranda to be the front guy. You know, for
Yeah.
this money. So I said, well, if you guys hadn't taken tobacco ads, maybe some of your subscribers would have lived as long as I've lived. You know, we're always going back and forth. But they got their rag, and so the latest skirmish I had with them, I said, and somebody said, well, what about the Manhattan News? I said, this is second and third generation white ethnics. They began this thing so they could hang out with Anglos at cocktail parties.
That's funny. And so, but you know that the thing.
John McWhorter said that black people have their genes examined. He said we should be gene edited so we be smarter and less violent. So they brought him in from the West Coast. You know, he's an obscure linguist out here.
Right. He was a
he wrote a right-wing book. He was at Berkeley. He wrote a right-wing book, and they said, "Oh man, we can use this." And they brought him to New York and set him up. But he got mad with me because the campus newspaper asked me to comment on his book, Losing the Race. I said I read it twice in 5 minutes. Okay. And he called me up and he said, I'll whip you, I'll wipe up the floor with you and debate, you know. And I said, well, why don't we debate on David D's show? No, we're not going to debate on David D's show. So we finally ended up debating on Michael Eric Dyson's show.
Yeah.
And he told me, he said, you should be civil toward me, right? I said, why do I have to be civil with a Nazi sympathizer? You know, because all this stuff about gene editing, that's Nazi stuff, right? They want to edit. We'd like to edit your genes. Get the Gestapo in here and tie this guy down so we can eat him. But he's the voice. The black voice of the New York Times.
Yeah. To newsletter subscribers only.
Yeah. Well, but you know, he's got a column there once in a while. Yeah. He comments on things he doesn't know anything about.
Of course, that's the whole thing about
being a token. You got to comment on things you don't know. So now he's commenting about the theater. Doesn't know what he's talking about.
He knows his experience.
You know.
So Ishmael, I want to ask you this only because you know I've known you a while, and were you taken on Juneteenth, on the eve of Juneteenth, with the death of Willie Mays? Did you?
Well, I don't know. I don't follow. I find baseball boring, but
it is. But Mays.
Yeah, I'm a UFC man.
You are.
I like to see people knocked unconscious.
So
you know it's not rigged like boxing.
Yeah, it's not rigged. It's not. You know, I initially in 2005.
No, they love athletes. They love black athletes.
I know they love.
You ever see film of the German Olympics?
No, I haven't.
Okay, but, well, you know,
the Jesse Owens, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The Germans, Nazis, they're applauding Jesse Owens. Man, they're all standing up and giving him a standing ovation.
Yeah,
you know, and they're Nazis. So you know, people love athletes, black athletes. You know, they gave Charles Barkley a political show.
They're special.
On CNN, he got talks about politics. Charles Barkley talks about politics.
He can dunk.
He said that you need a bulletproof vest to walk through San Francisco. You know.
Yeah.
Crime rate in San Francisco is down.
Yeah. No, I am really surprised at how people everywhere, when you tell people that, oh, you're from San Francisco, they'll say something, oh wow, it's so dangerous there. Well, yeah, one block, couple blocks, and you go to the right blocks, and you can drink your Chardonnay and Cabernet, and you know it's no big deal. But
Joe Scarborough said that San Francisco, something like San Francisco's out of control, and they got a right-wing district attorney. This billionaire who had this reception for Trump recently.
Mm-hmm.
He gave her $100,000. She didn't disclose it until after she was elected. She's following the Manhattan Institute playbook. She said we should not make the homeless comfortable. I mean, they're all out there, you know, drinking cognac and with their butlers and things, you know, being comfortable. She said, you know, and she's arresting people for low level crimes and everything. So
Yeah. Well, did you see the latest Supreme Court ruling on
sort of, I
this?
saw that you can't sleep outside. You can't sleep on the sidewalk.
The sidewalk ban is going to be. I mean,
Well, Trump said he's going to set up concentration camps.
right. But the homeless with the
And
undocumented
he said that he wants to shoot. He wanted to shoot Black Lives
protesters.
Matter
Yeah.
demonstrators. Remember, he said he wanted to shoot them. Well,
Um,
well, 50 Cent, you better not get into no demonstration because you might get shot. 50 Cent, you lose your job over there.
hey, I'm glad you mentioned 50 Cent because we were talking. One of the things that launched us into our conversation was talking about rappers replacing civil rights leaders. Do you think that's why we're seeing African Americans and Latinos, uh, more younger Latinos and African Americans embracing Trump
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
I call it suicide by vote.
because they're going to pay the price of the vote.
Of course, of course, of course. He's talking about occupying black neighborhoods with the army. You know, they're more. Biden didn't even say this last night. All the crime is taking place in the red states.
Yeah,
That's where the crime is taking place. But Joe Scarborough and these guys say, "Oh, Philadelphia, you know, New York, you know,
that's
Illinois,
because
all of black people have high populations."
well, they're talking about the the battleground states, right? They even got a phrase for it. The 6% in the 6 states
Mhm.
and the 6 battleground states. And one of the things that I thought about was, well, maybe Biden recovers from last night, but you might see him fall prey to what happened to Hillary Clinton. He wins the
Yeah,
popular.
if Trump is elected, he might fall prey to insanity.
Yeah,
So, which is worse? I mean,
yeah.
some
Well,
guy.
I'm just saying that, just like Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but lost the electoral vote.
She
Maybe,
won. He was helped by Putin. That's his buddy.
yeah. Well,
I mean, people seem to leave that out that Putin interfered with the election.
last night was really interesting, where Trump said, "I'm going to end that war before I get elected." Before he gets elected,
Yeah.
he said, "I get you elect me before I'm in office. I'm going to end that war in Ukraine." And he didn't say this. He implied that his buddy Putin would, you know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I still that story persists about him being blackmailed by Putin.
yeah. Well, yeah. So we'll see. We'll have to see
Okay.
what
Okay.
happens. Hey, Ishmael. So this is the inaugural Pan Oakland podcast, and we'll do it like once every couple weeks. Once we'll do it.
Yeah, we get other people on because I'm
Yeah.
sure they're not as manic as I am. You know, going from subject to subject and all that.
No. It's fine.
Yeah.
I,
New
I
York Times. New York Times call us the blue collar pen.
the blue collar pen.
Yeah, so you can come to our ceremonies. You don't have to wear a tuxedo or know all about wines, know all
Yeah.
about different wines. Okay.
The blue collar pen. Do we have to fix anything with tools though?
Well, I don't know. We're all from the working class. I think that's what that means. You know, your dad was a working class person.
He was. He made salad.
And the rest of our members. You know, so
He was a cook,
yeah,
union cook,
yeah,
union cook,
that's what I'm talking
local,
about. Man.
local too,
My
local too.
stepfather worked at Chevrolet for 35 years. So,
Yeah,
we are working class still. We're blue collar pen.
yeah. So, well, I'm privileged to say that I am a board member of the Oakland Pen, and also very happy.
We're glad because you're bringing skills. That's great.
Well, I do write essays. I haven't. I'm going to start. I'm going to try to bridge into poetry and novel
You'd be a
writing.
good poet. You'd be a good poet.
I want to write poems because they're shorter and they they sort of fit into my ADHD kind of.
It's the most democratic form. I think you have to be pretty middle class to do a novel.
Yeah, I think. Well, who's reading now? Who's reading now?
Well, people are reading.
Yeah, people are, but
You just have to get a global audience. I get like a lot of coverage in Europe and other places.
right, right.
In Poland, I wrote a poem about Chopin and published in Polish in a Polish newspaper.
I rem- I remember that. That's in the latest one, right? The new one that the new book that you published like a year or two ago.
No. This is new. This is
Oh,
I
new, brand new, brand new. Okay.
studied with a Ukrainian music teacher
Mm.
for about a half year on Chopin's Nocturne in C sharp minor, and out of that experience, I wrote a poem about Chopin. And some days he had to cancel because the Russians were bombing his city. And so I talk about my experience with him.
Oh
And,
yeah. Is that Mariupol?
no, it was another city, not Mariupol. It was another
Yeah.
city.
So, well, interesting. I like your assessment that poetry is democratic,
Mhm.
especially if you free yourself from the bonds of iambic pentameter and rhyming couplets and things
Yeah, well,
like that.
they have a poem called Waka, Waka in Japan. And everybody writes. People who are working class people in the court, royal court. They all write this, and I think that's happening more and more in the
Waka,
United States.
waka,
Waka,
waka.
Waka, yeah, and it's happening more in the United States, where more and more people are writing poetry.
Well, if they're on social media and they write and they realize they're writing,
Mhm.
and their writing gets better because they do social media a lot, they'll say,
Yeah,
"Hey, there's something poetic about this." And
I write stuff on social media like J. Oppenheimer. Robert Oppenheimer
mm,
is so admired in hell that the devil serves him his breakfast in bed. Stuff like
oh,
that.
I like that. Actually, my first poem I wrote, I got from I was a paper boy, and there was a, I and I won an award. I never took the credit for it. It was one of the national poetry awards. You send it, not the like you send in a poet. Well, it was a national contest, and the poem went. Everyone wants to live in heaven, but no one wants to die. Something like that. It was something that basically was it. I think I may have had an embellishment. I threw in an embellishment when I actually wrote the poem, but that was basically
Mhm.
the theme. And they said, "Oh, you're 12 years old. Hey, we'll give you a certificate." And but I thought, oh, poetry. I did, but I like it, and
Oh,
it's
good.
short enough for my attention span, and a great way to tell jokes.
Okay.
So anyway, so Ishmael, this is the inaugural Penn Oakland podcast. Um, we will christen it just like the Titanic. No, no,
Okay.
no. It'll be better. Than
It wasn't Christian. That's one of the problems.
It wasn't. It wasn't christened.
I just learned that last night reading a book.
Oh, oh wow. Okay. Well, lesson.
They thought that was a superstition.
Ah,
Christian, what with champagne bottle, breaking the champagne. So
that
then
would have broke. They would have learned.
I wait till a new script. You'll see it all in there.
Okay. All right. All right. I can't wait. We'll talk some more, and we'll do another one of these.
Okay, be great. Be
I'll
great.
post this where everyone can get it. I mean, we're live. If you found us accidentally, this is the inaugural Penn Oakland podcast. If you
Okay.
want to listen intentionally, I'll be posting it on wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay.
Maybe initially as I'll have to come up with. I'll tell you where to get it, and we'll put it, and we'll also put it on a link for the Penn Oakland
Sounds
website
good. Sounds
at
good.
oakland.org.
Okay.
Okay, Ishmael Reed, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for being part of the Penn Oakland podcast.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ishmael. And there he goes, Ishmael Reed. Thank you. I'm Emil Guillermo. Uh, go to penn-oakland.org for more information and to find out where to get the future Penn Oakland podcast. Till next time, keep writing. We'll come up with a name. I like the idea of writing is fighting, but we'll have to see what Ishmael says. All right. Thank you.